When there comes a point where there is just too much.
Tell me about it.
I'm going to. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Gospel Unplugged. My name is Pastor Ben Cieslik, and today I'm joined by my colleague,
Pastor Freeman.
And Pastor Freeman, today we are kicking off a new series where we will be talking about grace for a whole month. And then we'll be done. We'll have it all figured out.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I hope it extends beyond 1 month.
No. This is like one of the, over the course of the summer, we'll be talking about some of the core key concepts that matter to our faith and to our life. And grace is a big one. So we're going to spend a couple weeks unpacking it, reading some stories that shed a little light on why it's a big deal and why it's hard. So we have a fun story that we're kicking this series off with from Luke chapter 18. We'll read it and then we'll talk.
Great.
Jesus also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, was praying thus, God, I thank you that I am not like other people, thieves, rogues, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give a tenth of all my income. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even lift up his eyes to heaven, but was beating his breast and saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his home justified rather than the other. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all who humble themselves will be exalted. Well, this is a short little parable. It is, on one hand, pretty obvious in terms of like, be more like the tax collector and be less like the Pharisee. But to oversimplify it, I think misses some of the richness of it and some of the complexity of it and some of the ways in which we probably as people inhabit both of these characters at times. So I'm curious, like, what do you want to talk about, or what are you drawn to as we approach this text for our first week?
Yeah. First of all, I'm super excited that we're doing this series this summer. It's going to be great.
Good.
But to your point about thinking one is better than the other, I think that is very simplifying the whole thing, because we live in a culture that tends to do that. We like to pit people against each other, right, wrong, black and white, whatever it is. We make different judgments about things, and there's not a lot of room for anything in between. This doesn't necessarily say the Pharisee is not somebody to be like. He's doing really good things. He is tithing his income. He is fasting twice a week. He's in the temple praying. I mean, these are things that we are called to do as people of faith. So I don't think he's saying he's bad.
Right,
but,
and likewise, I think it's worth noting that the tax collector is not a very, he's not a great guy. Generally, the tax collectors in this time, were contractors to the Roman Empire. They were people who were out of the community. It would be like, if I decided, hey, I'm going to be a tax collector, and then I come to you, and they would set up a contract where they, this is how much I will give to the Roman. I will extract from my community for the empire. And then if they wanted to take a little extra on the top, no big deal. Rome didn't care. But they kind of were parasitic in a lot of ways and took advantage of their neighbors. So for the tax collector to be a sympathetic character, that's tough.
A reversal.
Yeah.
This is an upside down kingdom story, which is why it's a parable.
Yep.
So I love it because we don't tend to live this way. I remember a book a few years ago by David Brooks. Do you remember the book, The Road to Character, where it was really touting either your resume virtues or your eulogy virtues? And I feel like we tend to live in a world that tries to beef up a resume, make yourself prove your worth, show how good you are, and then you're going to be okay. But the kingdom of God is totally different. It's like flip that upside down. It's not about what you do or don't do. It's about what God has done for you and is doing in you, with you. And that's what this story really shows us, I feel like. So I like that.
I mean, there's a profound sense of humility that the tax collector is able to exhibit, a sense that he has screwed up, that he has taken advantage of folks in his community. I mean, there's just a deep sense of unworthiness and a recognition that any grace, any mercy isn't deserved, and so asks for it as a gift. And there's something lovely about this. Whereas the Pharisee, a good religious folk, people who were trying to live out their faith and can easily look at somebody else and be like, oh man, that person is really falling short.
Struggling.
Like they're not, look at what he's doing to his neighbor. Look at how he's treating his wife. Look at how, we can easily come up with those lists of ways in which people are not great. And he seems to be almost rejoicing or reveling in the fact that
but he's patting himself on the back. Like, at least I'm not him.
Not that guy.
Yeah.
And I think that is something, for all of us to be tending to and thinking about and recognizing that we have that proclivity.
In us. And I think it's important to note that it's not even this distinct in our lives. It's usually a little more subtle. I mean, we can be like, well, he did that sin and I did this sin, but that's way worse than the one I'm doing. Even we might even recognize we're sinners, but we might compare our sinfulness. And I think that isn't of God either. It's like, okay, when you talked about this actually a second ago, I wondered what was it about the tax collector that made him feel like he needed mercy? I mean, usually there's a moment in our life that makes us feel like, what do we need God's mercy for? If we feel pretty self-sufficient on our own, or if we feel righteous as this guy, the Pharisee is, he seems pretty self-righteous. If you feel pretty strong in your own being and that you've proven yourself and accomplished everything and are as perfect as you can be, it's sometimes hard to recognize you need grace at all. So something in this tax collector's life must have made him realize that too, that he needed grace. And I wonder what it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something really offensive about forgiveness when you don't believe you need it. Like if somebody tries to forgive you for something that you've done and you're like, well, I didn't do that. I think you're 100% right. There had to have been some sort of moment, some sort of reckoning, some sort of inflection point in this person's life where they're like, this doesn't feel good. Or this isn't what I want to be doing, or what I feel like I'm being called
to. In him or something.
Right. And so there was an invitation or a crisis moment where it's like, this isn't right. And I can't go anywhere apart from leaning on God's gift, God's mercy, God's forgiveness, which is really, really powerful. And I think, the text says that this guy is the one who went home justified. And that's a freighted word. It's a busy word. It's a word that we get used a lot in the church. But I think at its core, it is this invitation to see being in right relationship with God. And what we see in this text is that gift of grace being restored, brought back into right relationship with God is free. It doesn't depend on this guy's bona fides. In fact, it's the opposite. It's the recognition of his need for
it. He can't do it on his own. Yeah. And so thank you for pointing that out, because I did think the mention of the words justification and righteousness in there probably need a little bit of an explanation. So thanks for kind of fleshing that out for us. Yeah.
So as you're thinking about this story and how you're going to preach on it, what kind of questions would you want people to be thinking about in the run-up to Sunday?
Well, I just believe so wholeheartedly that this is the heart of our faith, or this is the core of what we live as Christians, is to be people of grace and mercy and forgiveness and justification and,
all the words.
All the words. But how does that actually look tangibly? So I've been thinking about this. Why don't we reflect on a couple of questions? Can you think of a time in your life when you felt you needed to prove yourself to be loved, accepted, or to belong. And then secondly, where do you feel completely loved, accepted, and that you belong without any of your own action or inaction, just as you are? And
Yeah.
how do you notice a difference, or what does it do to you? Like, how can you even make a distinction, I guess?
Yeah, those are really provocative questions. And I think, we live in a culture that pushes us to the first. And it can be exhausting. And so to reflect on those moments where we've experienced the latter is really a big gift. So thanks for inviting us to think about that. And thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in church on Sunday.